Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Fernandes, Director of Quocirca, and today I'm joined by Oscar Sanchez, CEO of Kyocera Document Solutions America. So welcome, Oscar. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Louella. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, so I just thought we could start with, I met you quite a few years ago in the UK now, and I think it would be great to sort of understand your career history at Kyocera and maybe how the business has changed since you joined the company.
Yeah, well, I've been in the company for 25 years, so I have been in the printing industry for a long time already. And of course, 25 years ago, we're talking about printing, and that's what we're selling, that's what our industry was doing. And I think now we have seen in the last years a movement from the physical document into the digital document. So as I said, that's something that we have seen happening in the last 10 years. But I think probably in the last year, after all the issues going on with COVID-19, people working from home, I think that the demand for document solutions, for digitalization of processes, for workflow management have become bigger and bigger. So we see that all those trends that we saw before COVID-19 have been accelerated in the last 15 months.
It would be interesting, actually, because you were based in Europe for so long. Are there any particular differences you see in the European market versus the US market in terms of how you're shaping the strategy and vision for Kyocera in the US?
Yeah, of course, there are different markets. And again, here, probably, during COVID-19, we have seen that some of the trends that were going on have been really accelerated. I think in Europe, we saw some years ago a big movement from A3 to A4. So from bigger devices to smaller devices because they were more efficient. And also, I think in Europe, there were, bigger concern about footprint and about probably sustainability and having devices that don't consume so much energy. So that movement from A3 to A4 happened in Europe, was happening in Europe some years ago. Here in the US, it was an A3 driven market, but then now all of a sudden, again with COVID-19, we see a big peak in demand for A4 products, and I think that changes a little bit the landscape of the industry. I think probably another factor is the concern about the environment and the protection of the environment. Maybe here was not something that was really big. I think now it's in the political agenda. And at the same time, this is creating the new concern in many customers. So I think this is also happening here. I think generally speaking in the industry, probably the biggest change, the biggest difference that I see with Europe is that there is a lot of private equity activity here in the US, very much involved in acquiring dealers and really helping dealers as well to grow and to invest money on them. Not that that's not something that is not happening in Europe, but probably that's more concentrated in the UK, maybe in France. But in the rest of the countries of Europe, there are not so much M&A activity and not so much presence of private equity. And I think that's a major player here in the US if I compare that with Europe.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a couple of things I want to kind of pick up on there. So you mentioned about the shift from A3 to A4. And, clearly with more remote working and, I guess employees needing products in their home environment, have you seen a big change in the sales channels that Kyocera is having to expand, perhaps the kind of B2B e-commerce side of things, and how is Kyocera adapting to those changes?
Well, at the end, what is clear is that e-commerce is a major disruption in any industry. I think probably until now, e-commerce has been more focused on the B2C. So we thought, and many of our competitors, Kyocera, were not so much focused on B2C. So that's something that was a little bit, not so much affecting us. But now I think that more companies would realize that if, we have been at home, being able to buy everything online, when we go back to our business, why we are not able to do the same, to do any kind of acquisition for our business. So that's something that we cannot ignore. That doesn't mean that our dealers will not play a role on that, but I think that we need to understand, and our dealers need to understand that e-commerce is a major driving factor in any industry, And I think that more than seeing it as a threat, we have to see that as an opportunity. And I think that we as Kyocera, we are trying to work with our partners to help them create e-commerce engines that they can use to promote their products, and especially probably to the low range of the product line. I think that we will see that more and more of those products will be acquired through e-commerce platforms.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting trend, particularly with employees purchasing their own devices online, like you said, the kind of B2C side, but also how that's influencing the B2B purchasing channel. So it's great to hear that you're focusing, increasingly on that kind of e-commerce opportunity. So you mentioned that you're helping your channel partners address that opportunity, but are there any other ways you're helping the channel take advantage of opportunities around areas like content management, document solutions in general, and also automation, security, and perhaps broader IT services?
Yeah, I think that the times that a supplier, all we have to do, that's a lot already, but basically you have to focus on provide a good product with a good price. Of course, that's the basic thing that you need to do as a supplier. But I think that right now the markets are very competitive, and I think that our partners demand more from us. So here in the US, you see really big dealers. I think that probably that's another big difference. You compare that with Europe. You have some dealers with revenues of 400, 500 million. So really the size of those companies are really big, and they have the means to really invest and create the kind of value that they need for the customers. But at the same time, you have dealers that they need to get the support of us as suppliers to develop their presence in markets like IT, like ECM, to improve the technology. At the end, I think every organization right now is involved for driving some kind of corporate transformation. I think that some dealers, they have difficulties to know what to do and how to do it. So I think that the way that we see Kyocera as a value provider is that we need to help dealers in that transition. So that's why, for instance, we're trying to develop an e-commerce engine that our dealers can use. We're trying to develop new ways of selling. I think that we are very much focusing on subscription-based services that I think that will be demanded more and more. And we want to explain our dealers how this business can help them to grow in this way of doing business. And at the same time, we are involved in investing in technology and workflow automation. And we believe that we need to use that same technology and that same know-how, and they can leverage our experience and our investments to try to help them grow. So at the end, I think that more than ever, I think that the whole idea of partnership plays a major role now if we want to help our dealers transform to the new market reality.
Yeah, so it's very much about the channel adapting to the kind of post-pandemic world, I guess. And, I think those opportunities like beyond e-commerce, but also solutions and IT services, we definitely see as key to future growth and innovation in the market.
But I think that, some dealers at the beginning, I think that they were in this stage of denial, believing that, once COVID-19 is gone, then things will go back to normal. And I think that we need to admit that will never happen. Maybe this sounds, a big statement, but printing volumes will never come back to the volumes that we had before COVID-19. That's a reality. So we need to adapt to that. That doesn't mean that our business cannot grow, but I think that we need to find new revenue streams and new business opportunities, because printing volumes will decline. Not everybody will go back to the office. That means that the number of devices will be less than we had before. And I think that's something that you cannot deny, and then you need to understand and adapt to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with managed print services, there's a real opportunity for the channel to, I guess, change their offerings so that they can actually help businesses move from that sort of A3 to A4 distributed environment, offer solutions that help digitization and, business process automation. So like you say, it's kind of the flip side of the print volumes declining. It's where do you get, the new revenue opportunities from that. And we see, and actually I did have a look at the website earlier, and I thought it was really nice the way that Kyocera frames it on the US site. I think you talk about the five S's. I think it was scalability, serviceability, savings, security, and sustainability. I remembered all of them. I was pleased with that. But it's, I think that's a really good way to show that there are 5 opportunities how MPS providers can actually have those conversations with their customers and sustainability is one I wanted to come back to, because I know Kyocera has always been very strong on the sustainability messaging and with environmental, social and governance kind of initiatives in place. Could you give me a bit of insight into how that's changing, I guess, generally for Kyocera, and are there any particular initiatives that it's driving forward more since the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think that, as you said, the environment has been always something that, protection of the environment has been our DNA. I think our technology in our printers, the ecosystem technology has been around for more than 30 years. And that's about protection of the environment. We have long life components that do not need to be replaced often. So that means that the waste is heavily reduced if we compare with other brands. So again, that's something that has been around for a long time. It will always be in our focus, so that will not change. But at the same time, we understand that this, corporate social responsibility is not only about protection of the environment. There are many other elements connected. And I think here in the US, something that happened in the last year is not really connected with COVID-19. It's more connected with, the racial conflict that we saw here in the US 1 year ago with terrible happenings here that really affected the way that probably the society were looking at racial injustice. So I think that there is one component in this corporate social responsibility, which is about diversity, that became extremely important here in the US. I think, of course, all over the world, but I'd say that especially here in the US, because what happened last year, I think it was a wake-up call for many organizations that we need to put diversity as one of our main focus and main areas of contributing to the advancement of society. So we understood that message from Kyocera. We included diversity as one of our 4 core values. That's something that we try to look at in our development, people development strategies, recruiting of people, but also when we get involved with the communities to try to contribute to solve a problem that is very evident that is still out there. And again, I think that's something that probably the last year changed the perspective of many organizations and help us to put more focus on trying to solve these problems. So I would say that has been the major change that I have seen in the last year in terms of corporate social responsibility. And again, for Kyocera, this is extremely important.
That's a really good point, because obviously that whole kind of diversity and, equality has risen up the agenda. And I think, as consumers, we're more conscious of when we're making purchasing decisions of the companies we're dealing with. And I guess, for companies like Kyocera and other print manufacturers, they need to have a very strong message around that to help ensure that, customers and, potential customers understand, what their approach is in that space. And I think, it's great to hear that that's something that you're very sort of focused on. And, I guess that has been a huge change over the past year.
Yeah, I think that in my personal point of view, and that's very personal, I think that the worst thing that you can do when you look at corporate social responsibility is to have a kind of selfish motives around it. I mean, you cannot you should not do this to get more business. Mm-hmm. I think that really that's a starting with the ground foot. So I think you have to do this because, any company is a part of the society and you need to contribute to the improvement of the society. That's it. I think there is a side effect and that will have an impact on your business. As you said, customers will look to the type of companies they're doing business with, and they will understand diversity and inclusion as an important element that they want to see in their suppliers. So that will be a positive or negative effect depending on what stance you have in those matters. But my point of view, you don't have to look into it. I think you have to do it because it's the right thing to be done, and that's it.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's not just a checkbox mentality. It has to be because you want to do that for your own business. And I think it's very much the same with sustainability. We've seen in a lot of our research that more IT decision makers are selecting suppliers that have strong sustainability credentials, but also can deliver solutions that help them reduce their environmental impact. And I think, as I said, this is another opportunity for NPS providers to really have those conversations with their customers and explain how, by using a managed print service, if they go for a subscription model, it can reduce their operational expenses. They can actually, potentially reduce their print volumes, improve their, operational efficiency around documents and so on. So I think that those 5 S's, I think, were, really great way of actually putting that in a framework. So the mindset, I think, of traditional partners and, I think also traditional OEMs are very much legacy focused around their business, very much, in the past been product focused rather than perhaps on business model innovation. And, what do you think are the challenges that the industry as a whole is facing in terms of changing that legacy mindset to move towards these new business models? And, I think that the industry has always been very innovative in terms of technology, but I think where it's perhaps been a lot slower than its traditional tech competitors is around business models and those adjacent solutions and services.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that, as I said before, I have been in this industry for 25 years, and the way that we have been selling our services have been always the same way. We sell our devices, and then we sell a maintenance contract based on a click price, and the customer pays for every click that they make. So that has been around for a lot of years, and I think that will change, and we will see a big change in the coming years. I think that nowadays everybody, or in many industries, we see that the products and services are sold with a subscription-based contract. So you go to Spotify or you go to Netflix, and then you pay a monthly fee, and everything is included there, and you don't need to worry about anything else. I think that this will come to our industry. We're going to launch here in the US a very big initiative around that. We're going to create a concept which is unlimited printing. The customer will pay a monthly flat fee, and everything will be included there with no counters, no clicks. The customer will be able to print as much as they want. I think this is the direction that this industry will take in the future, and that requires a big, drastic change that I don't think that is easy to be done, and I don't think that we are even able to do it at this point. If you look at all those concepts, I think normally in our industry, we always thought that we want to create stickiness with our customers. We want to make sure that our customers stay with us as long as possible. But you go to Spotify or you go to Netflix, and there what you see is how easy it is to cancel your contract and how easy it is to go to a different supplier. So it's totally the opposite concept. It's not about creating a stickiness. It's about creating an easy way to break your relationship with me as a supplier. That's a huge change that is not easy to be done. It's not only in our industry. I think there are many industries that will go through that. But I think we have to look around and we have to see that those things that we like as an individual consumer, that we like to have that simplicity of doing business, of getting a service, and also to break a contract or to interrupt a contract. We want to have the same approach when we do business with, in our companies, in our businesses. So again, that will become a cultural change. And we always think, okay, but this is not in our industry. That's only B2C. Well, I think that you have to look around, and things that happen out there in the society will come to you in one way or the other. So I think that we need to be, we have been always very innovative in our industry from a technology point of view, but also in the way that you do business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one key foundation of that is the cloud. And, we've seen the cloud adoption just rapidly increase over the past year. And, it's interesting you say, because obviously we see that in other industries like telecoms where, you're tied into a contract and you people just stay with the same provider, even though it may be straightforward to change now. And I think it's very much about moving away from printers to printing and, to the service. And, printing is just the commodity now, I guess. It's something that the industry has needed to do for a while, but I think, the pandemic is really pushing these needs for subscription models. And it's interesting to see how, I think some vendors are doing that on the consumer side, but how do you translate that into a B2B environment? And I think cloud is going to be key because so many businesses are so used to using a subscription model for cloud. So they'll want to use those same type of subscription models for other parts of their technology infrastructure.
I agree with you. And I mean, everybody's looking at Amazon from an e-commerce perspective. Mm-hmm. I think that you did a very nice paper recently about that. I mean, it's not only about Amazon as an e-commerce provider. Look about their cloud offering they have. They are becoming a major player there. And I think they see a massive opportunity there because everything right now is moving to the cloud. And I think companies, they don't want to have physical servers anymore. They want the simplicity and the flexibility that comes with the cloud. And I think that's something, again, that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Amazon is that they're completely customer obsessed in terms of their focus, and it's very customer centric in terms of how they developed all their different service offerings. And I think that's really where the print industry has to go, from that product first to customer first. type approach. So just going back on the point around IT services. So you mentioned that you're sort of encouraging the channel partners to move that way. Do you have any particular partnerships or collaborations with IT service providers, or is it something you're looking to grow organically?
Well, we want to go both organically and inorganically. I think that we have done significant acquisitions in the past. In the UK, we acquired Anodata, and that has been a great success for us because we brought a lot of IT services knowledge and IT services revenue. We also acquired a company in Australia with the same purpose. Here in the US, we are growing more organically, so we have an important IT services division that we believe it's a really nice complement with the kind of services that we have been traditionally providing to our customers. We have long-standing relationships, and we believe that we can help the customers to integrate everything, printing and IT services in the same time of contract. So I think the idea is to be able to grow both organic and inorganically, and also, again, to help our dealers to grow in that area. Here in the US, we see many dealers getting into IT services, but we cannot ignore that you require significant investments to have some presence in the IT services, and you need to have a critical mass in order to become profitable, and that's not easy for all the dealers. So what we will try to do is that we want to be able to offer to our dealers our IT services so they can sell to the customers, but we provide all the operating centers, control of the network, even products and services. So we're able to provide these services to the dealers. So I think that probably one of the areas of major expansion for our industry will be in terms of IT services and also in terms of ECM.
Yeah, because we're seeing more with our research that IT managers, IT decision makers are looking for one supplier to manage their IT infrastructure. And, I think, again, that's an opportunity for MPS providers to either partner with other IT MSPs or be able to sort of develop an offering that covers both print and IT services. And I know this is something that has been around for a long time, but I think now it's, it seems to be a perfect timing to actually have a sort of joint offering across both print and IT. So it's interesting to hear, because as you say, IT services in the UK with Anodata, I think that's really helped Kyocera in the UK really capture a much broader market from the IT services side.
And especially because right now, with any customer that you talk to, the conversation is around cloud, as you said before. It's about security, it's about workflows, about process automation. So I think those kind of conversations are conversations that you have, even if you talk, you talk about IT, of course, but also you talk about printing. We can talk about printing, and then we need to talk about cloud. We need to talk about security. We need to talk about workflows. So I think that the connection between these two worlds are really there. And I think, again, having a company like we have in the UK, like Anodata, is helping us a lot to be able to elevate our message and to understand the importance of those concepts.
So, just finally, really, on what you see next for the industry, we've talked a bit about cloud and online marketplaces and e-commerce, IT services, but what do you think, probably would be the priority for the industry moving forward, and also what's next for Kyocera?
Well, for us, I think, as I have been repeating in this conversation, I think that there are three important areas that will drive our future. We talk about IT services. I think that would be very important. We talk about ECM. We have done also significant investments in ECM. We acquired 3 companies in Europe, Sionic, Optimal Systems, and Evergreen, to try to have our own ECM technology. At the end, again, with the pandemic, we see that any customer or any employee of a customer has to initiate a workflow, a document process when you are in the office, because you just scan a document, but then you go home and then you have to finalize that document process at home. So you need to be able to have a very nice integration of workflow and ECM technology to be able to do all that. So we see a very natural expansion there. And the third big area that we are investing a lot is in production inject. Although printing in the office may decline, but we see that the production of the printing of variable data printing, direct mailing, I think that there is a very significant market there that we are investing in inject technology that due to the very inexpensive way of printing can be optimal for those kind of environments. So those 3 areas, IT, ECM, and production inject, are the main areas that we're investing. Of course, together with our traditional printing technology. I mean, this will change. We know the printing volumes will decline, but printing will not go away. And we want to keep on being a major player in that industry.
Okay, well, that's great. I think we appreciate you taking the time to give us some insight into strategy and vision for Kyocera in the US. Just as a final note, I know you haven't been back to Spain for a while, so just, with the lockdown measures, gradually being released, do you have any plans to go back to Spain?
Yes, of course. I haven't been there in the last 2 years, unfortunately, but this summer we have plans to go there, so quite excited about it, because not only, again, a big change of this, the consequence of the pandemic, that I will have some time to be on vacation, but also I will be able to work from there. That's something that I never thought before. So that gives opportunities to have a longer stay in my home country, and that's something I'm looking forward to do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks ever so much again, Oscar, for taking the time to join me today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
So thank you for joining today's In the Spotlight with Quocirca podcast episode. For more information, please go to quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.